the Your Joyful Kristys podcast with Birgit Tan. I'm Birgit Tan and the G100 Global Networking USA All Ladies League. And today we are so honored. We're so honored to have Kristy Russ here. Kristy is a health coach, and this being the new year, we all would love healthy body, and so we're honored and thrilled to have Kristy here to share her expertise with us. And Kristy, would you love to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So I call myself the Maverick Pharmacist Functional Medicine Health Coach. And of course, most people don't really know what functional medicine is. So, quick explanation, it's kind of figuring out the underlying reasons for why you're not feeling great. And then I help you fix those, which not only gets you looking and feeling great now, but it prevents the future issues from cropping up. And those fixes are mostly non medicine kind of things, which is why I call myself the Maverick Pharmacist. And the thing is, it's infinitely more effective than standard medicine, which I know from having been in that space for almost 30 years. And the strategies I teach people help you lose weight permanently, stop constant pain, have tons of energy, as well as stop pretty much every other health issue that's interfering with your life. Because honestly, pretty much every health issue can be fixed with just a few simple strategies.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear that a lot of health conditions that we have, once we understand it, it's easy to take care. And so, what brought you into becoming a maverick pharmacist and functional medicine health coach?
Well, it was my own journey of woes, really. And they started pretty early for me. I was pretty young, just a few years after my second child was born. And I was exhausted all the time. And of course, I just chalked it up to having two young children, but it just kept getting worse and worse. And then added to that, of course, not only did my pregnancy weight not go away, but every year I was getting an extra 2 or 3 pounds heavier. I also had a really serious knee pain that was getting alarmingly worse to the point where it was pretty much throbbing all day long. And then I started getting sleep issues and kind of typical women's hormonal issues with the PMS and mood swings, which I'd never had before. So that was just a ton of fun for the family. And all of this was just a really disconnect to the person that I am because I've always been that active, energetic, positive person. So this reflection in the mirror and what my life had become was just totally unrecognizable to me. And of course, I was doing all the right things, and all of the tests from the doctor came back normal. So I was pretty shocked. I felt ripped off, to be honest, because these kinds of things are only supposed to happen to people that don't take care of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I think what really freaked me out is that I had seen my situation enough times in the pharmacy to kind of know where this was going. And so, being the geeky scientist type that I am, I started doing just tons of research to figure out how I was going to stop this. And man, I learned a whole bunch of things that they don't teach you in pharmacy or medicine. And I discovered that most of what I've been taught my whole life about how to be healthy was actually totally wrong. And once I started applying what I learned, it was only a few short months that all of my issues went away. And I mean, all of them totally gone. And this was like, wow, this is interesting. And so I was talking to my friends and some of my pharmacy clients that, you really kind of develop a relationship. And I told them, I thought, well, try this, see what happens, go. And if I hadn't seen the before and after with my own eyes, I mean, my situation was there were common symptoms, but they weren't, crazy, right? But some people with some major stuff, like I would never believe that just a few simple fixes would have had such a profound effect on someone's life. So anyway, once I discovered this and how effective it was, it's kind of become my life's mission to get this information in front of people because we got people suffering all over the place and they really don't need to be.
Wow, that is so wonderful. And the best part is, as you said, a few steps, because a lot of time that sounds What do you say to people who says, yeah, you know, that sounds too good to be true, because if they have a lot of health condition, and then you know, now you said, well, you do certain basic simple steps, and they will be much better. It can sound a little bit too good to be true. What do you say to them?
Well, it's so I guess the thing is, it's not that you don't have to make changes because, you know, people don't like to make changes, right? They want to just take a pill and have it all fixed, right? So, I mean, you do need to make some changes, but the thing is, what you think is healthy really isn't, and we're still being misinformed constantly. And it's not, and it's very realistic. Like, I would never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do. It's got to fit into a busy life. It's got to be pretty easy to do. It's got to be something you're willing to do ongoing. So I'm kind of like, you know, for things, yeah, so it's not that you don't have to make changes, because it's usually lifestyle stuff or you've got some mess or whatever. It's just that the changes that you need to make are simple.
Oh, that's really awesome. And so that is you mentioned about misinformation. Do you have an example of one, say, misinformation? So that's pretty commonly nowadays.
Well, yeah, I would say, I mean, the biggest thing and the most important thing for people to change really is their food choices. And, you know, what are you eating? What we've been told our whole lives and everything is really very inflammatory. And if most people know, or maybe you don't know, but inflammation is kind of the underlying cause of most diseases, most why you're not feeling well, why you're not losing the weight, all of that kind of stuff. So, so yeah, it's the food choices, and I always say food choices because it's not diet, it's not whatever. It's just, I always tell people, it's like you're eating anyway. All you need to do is learn the stuff you really should be eating and should be avoiding instead. Because people come to me all the time, and the way the misinformation goes is there's people eating all this stuff that they think is healthy that really is terrible for them, and avoiding all this stuff that they think is bad for them that they actually need to be eating more of. And it's just a re-education to learn what that really is, how your body works, how it reacts to the foods that you eat, because that's really the key. And then once you know that, you know, it's easy. Well, yeah, like I find it quite easy. It's not, you don't need the deprivation, you don't get the cravings, you don't have all that stuff.
So you don't have to go dieting and so forth. You can still eat like a normal people is what I'm hearing. And
Exactly, yeah.
well, that's
Yeah,
always
you don't have to be one of those people that like can't go out to eat, or you go out to eat with your friends and you're like, okay, well, I can have this, and this, and you know, and all this stuff that you're never going to keep up. That's why I find diets, that's why I don't like to use the word diet, because you know, the whole premise of saying that you're going to go on a diet means that at some point you're going off of it, right? So any good or any benefits that happen from that just disappear when you're done. And most people, you know, go back to exactly the way they were, and it usually worse. And every time you do that, it actually makes it harder and harder for any of that kind of stuff to work. Like if you did a diet or whatever, let's say now, and you know, let's say it's for weight loss, right, which is what most people do it for, and you lost, you know, 20-30 pounds or whatever, and you're like, oh yay, and then you kind of, you know, what ends up happening, you kind of slide back to old habits because nobody can, you know, do those restrictive things forever. Then you know, you end up gaining all of the weight back plus more is usually what happens, because most of them are wrecking your metabolism. And then let's say, and you're like, ah, okay, whatever, and then next year, or you know, 6 months, 8 months from now, you decide, you know what, that worked for me, I'm gonna do this again. And then you do it, and it doesn't really work. Like you might lose a few pounds, but you never get back to where you were. So every time it sort of just makes you're doing more and more damage to your metabolism, for lack of a better word.
Oh, no, that's really interesting. I didn't even realize there is such a phenomenon. It's kind of almost like the body recognize it and get used to it and become resistant or something.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've never really looked into exactly why it is. That's just the way it seems to go. And that's why people get into that whole yo-yo dieting where it's like every year you're doing that. So
And then a lot of people learn that they need to go into the next new diet and the next.
that's right. Yeah. You got to find the next great thing, right?
Right. And do you have any something that everybody can use, particularly considering everything that's going on in the world right now with the pandemic and us we're all concerned about our health and our immunity. Is there one or two tips that you have on how we can all be healthier and have better immunity, which I think we all would love that right about now?
Yeah, right. Well, one of the easiest things that I tell people is like I call it the JERF principle, which I didn't make up, but it just means just eat real food, right? So quit the processed stuff, and that just means eating foods and they only have the one ingredient like itself. So it's like whatever meat it is, or broccoli, or whatever. Like it's not, some kind of processed package keto, low fat thing or whatever, right? So that's a huge thing because those things really tend to, it's like I said, how your body is reacting to the foods that you're eating. And those are very inflammatory, and it makes your blood sugar just go crazy. And that's huge for weight gain and immunity, right? And it does kind of wreck your gut. And most people don't realize how important gut health is for immunity, right? So if you're eating foods that are not causing inflammation, your gut's kind of nice and healthy, and your body's not constantly trying to put out this small fire, now it's able to focus on repair and immune system and that kind of stuff. So what you're eating is probably one of the biggest things. My second thing I would say, because, most people, your food choices are important because of the things that I just said, but you're not really, even if you eat the absolute perfect diet, unfortunately nowadays, it's no longer possible to get all of the nutrients that your body needs just from the foods that you're eating. So actually, a really good quality supplement regimen is really important if you want that optimum health, if you want your immune system top, which is really the best COVID prevention. Anything else, obviously the washing your hands and stuff like that, but I would say it's more important than masking and stuff. I know that sounds, heretic, but that I would say that's important. But I do want to stress, like I stress the words good quality, because there are some, most supplements are kind of like really crummy, like as far as quality goes, and so you're really not getting what you need from them. It's not doing what you're wanting it to do. It's sometimes filled with some toxins that your body ends up having to deal with. So some of them are okay, especially if you're doing like single nutrient stuff like vitamin D and that. But like a multivitamin or whatever, most of them out there are just garbage. So you really want to kind of do your research and make sure you're getting what you're hoping, right?
Well, that is wonderful. That is very true. And I did have an experience. I used to have a lot of health conditions, and one of them was having allergies. And I blame it to living in California and all the dust and all this thing. And it got to the point where I had to take antihistamine like Claritin or Zyrtec or something practically every day. Couldn't possibly be healthy for anybody, right? And one day, this is almost 10 years ago now. Actually about 7, 8 years ago, I decided for whatever reason, I decided to try the clean eating, and eliminate things one by one. And toward the end of it, I suddenly realized, hey, I haven't been needing to have my allergy medication for like a couple of weeks. So I start looking back and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so being me, being the geek scientist, like you said, I started adding things back one by one. And that's when I noticed I used to, besides the allergy, I used to have IBS and, depression and on and on and on. And all those things suddenly just improve, or the allergies disappear completely. And
Nice.
that was quite something. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like you never realize. Like I've discovered that as with the functional medicine that I've kind of become the gut specialist because people's guts really are the underlying reason for why they're not feeling great most of the time. And if you fix that, then everything else kind of falls into place. And it takes a bit of time, right? Like it's not like you're like a week later you notice, stuff. And so the body, like I said, the body is meant to heal and repair itself. We just need to help it do that by giving it the right nutrients and to make sure it's not busy fighting off inflammation and stuff from other things that we're doing or toxins or whatever. So
Oh, that's really wonderful. So I have this curious question because I've known a couple health coaches and so forth. That's like basically anti-cookies. They're like, cookies the worst thing for you. What about you? What's your thought about cookies?
about cookies,
Yeah,
like,
cookies.
well, I mean, it's everything in moderation, right? So I would put that up there with I mean, I guess if it's a store-bought cookie, it's definitely there with the processed food, but definitely, yeah, like we consume as a society far too many carbohydrates and like that refined stuff. And honestly, when it's what happens when you eat that it just like if your blood sugars spiking way up, that's what causes your cravings. It causes the insulin resistance, which causes the weight gain and all of that stuff. So, but do I eat cookies? Yes, I eat cookies. Like it's never about never being able to have it. It's just I always say the Pareto principle is key when you're doing this, because if I told you like no, don't eat any more cookies, are you going to do that for the rest of your life? Of course not. You're going to take and I mean, honestly, my favorite dessert is chocolate cheesecake, and I don't have it often, but I have it. And there's always room in a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle for those kind of treats. So yeah, not all the time, but you can do it.
I like that. You can have cookies in moderation. That sounds
Exactly.
that sounds quite good. So, do you have any last message for our listener, for our audience?
Yeah, I usually like to leave people with, the time, there's never a good time. There's no, people are always saying, oh, I'll do when I have more time, we'll do all that stuff. You want to decide now that you're going to take your life back, because no matter how much you think you're going to do it later, when you have more time, you won't. More time is a myth. And then you're just in the same or worse situation next year. And the sad reality is that most people don't invest the time or the money to ensure that they'll have the body and the energy that they need to live the life they love. So whatever your issue is, it's not going away on its own. Time to stop ignoring it and make yourself a priority. The functional medicine difference is huge. You'll be amazed. And that's why I made the online program, so that people would have easy access to it all the time. It's an easy way to do it. So
And that led us to the next and final question, the last but not least, which is, how do we connect with you? How do people find you and your online and so program and so forth?
right. Well, the best way is my website, which is KristyRussHealthCoaching.com. And Kristy Russ is spelled KRISTYRUSS. And yeah, from there you can contact me. There is a free masterclass that goes into all kinds of stuff. There's kind of like 5 key things that people aren't getting right, and so you can hear all of that. It's right there on the front when you go, and access to the online program that I just mentioned as well.
Super awesome. That is so really neat. And so we'll definitely post that. We'll post your websites on when we publish this as well. And is there anything else that you would love to add to this, Kristy?
No, I'm good. Like I said, do it now. Don't wait. Health is an asset, and it is your best asset.
That is very true. Health is an asset, and it's not like a car. You can replace it, right? So
Exactly.
It's with you from the beginning to the end. So
yeah, well, and people don't think about it until it's too late, right? Until you don't have it. The health priority is like way down here when you're feeling great, right? But then, as soon as you start having issues, all of a sudden it's like, holy gosh, kind of my situation. So do it now. Easier to prevent than to treat later, but you can still treat later.
And to do it right, look up, call up, connect with Kristy. And this is Bridget with G100 Global Networking USA All Ladies League and Joyful Riches Beyond Grief, your host. And I am so honored and so thrilled that you are with us today. And I look forward to see you again very soon next week with another super fun, empowering tips and messages that will allow you to create your wonderful, joyful, thriving life easily and with fun.